HHLA. And yeah, I'm going to quickly look at HHLA and what do we do, and then get into our hydrogen strategy. So HHLA, or Hamburger Hafen and Logistics AG, is a European port and logistics company, and we're mostly known for our port operations, but we also operate a intermodal network and offer different logistics services, and also manage a real estate segment in Hamburg. So here you can see we operate various terminals in the port of Hamburg. We're mostly known for our container terminals, container terminal Altenwerder, Burchardkai, and Tollerort in Hamburg. But as said, in addition, we offer a comprehensive intermodal network. Yeah, I forgot to say we also have international port terminals. We have a port in Tallinn and Odessa, and Tallinn in Estonia. We also have one in Odessa in Ukraine, unfortunately, right now, and we also operate a terminal in Trieste in Italy. But in addition to our port terminals, we also operate intermodal terminals. I think around 20 terminals all over Europe, especially in Central and Central Eastern Europe, and we have these intermodal terminals are located in industrial clusters in Eastern and Central Europe, and we connect these industrial clusters with the European seaports by rail. So we offer around 600 weekly connections between the European seaports and the industrial clusters in Central and Central Eastern Europe. And with that, we are currently the market leader in container transport in this region. And I will explain to you later why this is also important for our hydrogen strategy. Yes, and as HHLA, we set ourselves an ambitious goal. We want to be climate neutral by 2040, and we want to halve our CO2 emissions by 2030. And this is easy being said, but it's very difficult as we have a lot of heavy-duty vehicles on our terminals that we require a lot of fuel. And we have switched to battery electric systems already wherever possible, and we're still continuing to do so. But for some types of vehicles, we think that battery electric systems currently can reach their limit, and we see that there's a huge potential for hydrogen and fuel cell vehicles in our port operations. So this is one pillar of our hydrogen strategy is that we want to use hydrogen to decarbonize our operations. But the other pillar, and we've already mentioned that we are a logistics company, so we are of course also looking into how does the hydrogen get to the end consumer, how are we going to transport the hydrogen, and how are we going to import the hydrogen to Germany and to Europe. And I will start with the import and transport part, and then go into how we see we can use hydrogen as a consumer. I think you probably all know by now that there are different possibilities on how you can transport the hydrogen. How does it get to the end consumer? We have the pipelines where compressed gas is transported. We can transport it as liquefied hydrogen, but also as ammonia, as methanol, as LOHC. So there are different solutions, and we think that there will be no one solution for all. There will be no final, okay, every hydrogen that is consumed is going to be transported this way, but it always depends on the end consumer, how they need the hydrogen, and what requirements they have on how it's going to be transported to them. So we have listed some examples. For example, steel production, Elizabeth already said they don't need that high purity, but they have huge amount of demand. They require high volumes, which is very different from the chip production, for example. They require very high purity. And we have the mobility sector, in which we are already also in, and fuel cells also require a lot of very high purity, and most logistic operations are centralized, so they are not connected to the grid, which are also different requirements again. And then we have the fertilizer industry, for example. They need ammonia, so it's probably easy just to transport it as ammonia. The same goes for fuels and stuff, which based on methanol. So very different requirements for each consumer. And when talking about what infrastructure is needed and what do we need to do to get the hydrogen to the end consumer, it's very difficult and very fragmented, and that is why we're involved in multiple feasibility studies, and also we are part of the TIDE project, where we do research on what technology is best for what consumer, and how do we get it there, what is needed for the infrastructure. And there's still a lot to get the hydrogen to the end consumer in large scales. And we're in a conceptual phase with these studies. But at the same time, we're also showing that it's already possible today. And it's already possible to transport and import the hydrogen to the end consumer today in a climate neutral way. And the solution for that is the container. Because in a container, you can easily transport different carriers already today. You can import it to Germany, but you can also use the intermodal network, the rail system, to get the hydrogen to the end consumer using the existing infrastructure that is already there. And with the rail transport, for example, you can also transport it climate neutrally, which is very cool if you use hydrogen to decarbonize your operations. You also want it to get to you with a good ecological footprint. So we think that the container is a very good solution, and we've demonstrated that, for example, a couple of months ago now. We've shown that we can transport an ammonia container from the UAE to Hamburg, and we're doing similar demonstration projects for different carriers. And we think that this is very important, especially for the ramp-up phase. So we have a lot of demonstration projects, a lot of pilot projects all over Europe, and those projects need the hydrogen now. They cannot wait for the infrastructure to be there fully to start working on the project. But the goal is to kind of have the infrastructure ready when large-scale demand is going to be there. So in between, the container is a very good solution to get the hydrogen to the end consumer. And for some use cases, it might also be the solution to transport the hydrogen even when the infrastructure is there. You can still transport it. Or some customers, some use cases can also transport the hydrogen in a container in the long run. But so that being said, of course, we still need infrastructure for large-scale import. And as a port operation company, we are also looking into that, and we are considering the possibilities of infrastructure in the port of Hamburg, for example. And but that will take some time, and we're talking kind of like the end of this decade, beginning of next decade, when we really will have large-scale import infrastructure in the ports. Okay. And I said before, we are not only looking at import of hydrogen and transport of hydrogen, but we are also see ourselves as a hydrogen consumer. So as a port operation companies, we operate a lot of heavy-duty vehicles on our terminal. And I put some pictures in there. Of course, everyone knows the trucks, but we also have reach stackers and straddle carriers. You can see on the bottom left corner. They look kind of similar to the vehicles from Star Wars. And these vehicles, they require a lot of energy. And they lift heavy containers, multiple containers at the same time, and they are in operation 24/7. Here, we only have 5 days off in a year, and so we don't have time to charge for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and have the vehicles not in use, but they have to. They're also very expensive, so we need them to transfer the containers. The whole time, so battery electric systems are very difficult for these types of vehicles. So we are convinced that hydrogen is going to be a better solution for these types of vehicles. The only issue is that they are not available on the market. So we cannot go to a straddle carrier producer and say, please give us 50 or 100 or 200 of these vehicles. We need them in 2 years. No, we have to hundreds of vehicles available pretty soon. We have developed a 3-phase approach, which starts with phase 0. And phase 0 is that we have developed a multimodal test site for hydrogen equipment, and we want to do a proof of concept and test prototypes of these types of vehicles on our operations in Hamburg. And I will get into that a little bit more in detail in the next slide. But yeah, we are already also in phase 1, or preparing the phase 1, is that if this proof of concept has been successful, we want to change over to fuel cell technology at our Hamburg facilities in the near future. And for that we need large amounts of these vehicles, but also refueling infrastructure on every terminal, because these types of vehicles, you don't see them on the road. They're not allowed to leave the terminal, so we need hydrogen refueling stations at each of our terminals that I just showed you in the map. So this is a very large project, which we are preparing with phase 0, but looking into going into phase 1. And then if this project has been successful in Hamburg, we plan to roll that out to all our other European locations, so that we can fully decarbonize our operations. But as I said, we are currently in phase 0, which is that we've set up the clean port and logistics cluster. So we're not doing that alone, but we're doing that as part of an innovation cluster with a lot of other port logistics companies from all over the world, and also with heavy cargo logistics operators. And the heart of this cluster is the test field, where we test different types of heavy-duty vehicles with fuel cells and hydrogen.